Well, hi folks, and Happy New Year. I know it's been a little while since I've made my last video, but I figure this time of year, at the beginning of January, people are the most apt to start making changes in their diet and their nutrition. And I wanted to share with you something that I was working on. So, do you know what I'm guessing to be one of the most popular nutrition related gifts for the holidays? At least I saw a lot of this on my newsfeed. The food sensitivity testing and the DNA testing kits. They just kept coming up on my newsfeed on different social media accounts, and I thought, you know what, maybe this would tell me something different. Been studying nutrition for years, and even 10 years ago at nutrition conferences, they were talking about that nutritional genomics was the future. So basing your nutrition based on your genes. So I did two different tests. I ordered one which was based on genetic DNA information, and another one which was just the food sensitivity testing. So today I wanted to go over my results for their Everlywell food sensitivity test. This is the basic 88 food test, and what my plan is to go ahead and start the elimination diet. I feel like that's the hardest part because we can easily find, our top foods that we're sensitive to, but being able to endure a full 30 days of avoidance of those ingredients, those foods, is really hard. So I can tell you a little bit about the foods that came up on my test. Now, they rank your results in terms of high, moderate, mild, and low sensitivity response. They're measuring the IgG. Hold on. Um, uh, so Everlywell is based on the IgG antibody. So it's one of the immune system antibodies that's released when your system is exposed to an irritant that your body believes to be an attack on the immune system. So the Everlywell test. The first initial test is it tests you on 88 foods. If you haven't seen any of the videos or information about how the test works, it does require blood, but it doesn't require a lot of blood. You're sticking your finger and getting 5 drops of blood. You just put it on like one drop on 5 different sections of one card, and then you mail that in. And that's like all the work that it is. So there's nothing more complicated than that. And then it took me about, once they received the sample, I think I had the results in about a week, no more than 2 weeks. So it really was fast. It took less than less than 3 weeks for the whole entire process. And I was, curious. Um, I had my own theories of what I was sensitive to, and I actually was surprised by some of the results. So what was not on the test, I was not sensitive to dairy products. Now, I always thought that maybe, because so many people are, and sometimes you get a little bit of a mucus feel in your throat when you drink milk or have ice cream or that type of thing, but did not show up on the IgG antibody. So I didn't have any reactivity to dairy products. But my highest reactivity, which I found surprising, was I didn't get anything on the very high level of the test, but a moderate response to egg whites. So, years ago, I had done paleo for about 4 years in a row, pretty religiously. I followed a paleo diet for quite a while, and I had eggs for breakfast for could have been almost every day. Some days I would do sausage or a grain-free oatmeal, but I had eggs on a regular basis. So I'm not surprised that such a consumption of eggs. I don't know. I don't really know how it works, why you would become sensitive to a food, or if you're always sensitive to that food. This is what I'm going to find out in the experiment. So starting today, I'm going to be avoiding all of the moderate foods that had a moderate sensitivity to and all of the mild sensitivity foods. So luckily, I only had one moderate reaction, that was egg whites. But that means giving up eggs for about a month. And that's tricky because eggs are in a lot of things, not just eating eggs, but just as an ingredient. Egg whites are found in a lot of protein bars and a lot of processed foods. So it's really going to be tricky to make sure that I'm avoiding eggs. Now, egg yolk, interestingly, was on the mild sensitivity. So egg whites was on egg whites was on moderate, and then under mild, I had the egg yolks. So avoiding eggs as a whole, I'm going to do that for a month. And this is the protocol that Everlywell recommends to avoid all of your sensitivities from mild to moderate to high for full 30 days, and then reintroduce them one at a time with a few days in between to assess any reactivity that might occur. So, in addition to eggs and in addition to egg yolks, the other food sensitivities that were on a mild scale, there's quite a few, but I think under an umbrella you could say gluten or gluten containing foods came up quite a bit. So wheat, um, um, barley, rye, um, wheat bran, and and gluten itself was on the mild side. So I'm glad that it wasn't on the. I'm glad that didn't have a high reactivity to gluten, because honestly, when I eat any kind of food, most of the time I feel like I don't have any problems. I don't get a lot of skin reactions. I don't get a lot of itchiness. I don't get a lot of breathing problems or digestive problems. So I didn't really know what to expect as far as what I might be sensitive to. There wasn't anything super, super clear. So in addition to egg yolk and gluten-containing foods, apple was an interesting one, and green peas were interesting. Soybeans were also on the list, and garlic. Now, sometimes I notice if I have raw garlic, I have difficulty digesting it. It seems to cause a lot of gas and bloating. So garlic didn't surprise me. I was kind of sort of expecting that. And beans in general. Beans give me a lot of gas and bloating, but I just figured that was just digestion of the fiber. But maybe soybeans, even green beans was on my list for mild reactivity. And then, interestingly, some other nuts and seeds like cashew, peanut, I guess that's another nut or legume, sesame, and sunflower. So not going to really skip out on the seeds. So sunflower seeds and sesame seeds, and the butters, sunflower butter and sesame tahini. And that's about it. So that's one for the mild, for the moderate group, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different foods under the mild category, but 5 of them are because it's gluten related. So avoiding peanut butter is going to be a challenge because I was eating quite a bit of toast and peanut butter. Avoiding gluten. Oh, I forgot. There's one more on here I didn't mention, and that's baker's yeast. So baker's yeast, that's really puts bread out unless it's a sourdough gluten-free bread. And I don't know where to find something like that. I'll have to look around the health food stores. Maybe I can try making it. So bread and baked products are out that use yeast, and the nuts like cashew and sesame and sunflower. So anyway, that's what I'm avoiding this month. So what I'm going to do is start to put together a breakfast plan. Right now it's oats and a scoop of collagen protein powder because I'm not doing the eggs. So I got to get my proteins in other places. And I realize that collagen is not a complete protein, but it's just a place to get some of those important proteins that I want to have in the morning time anyway. And a little bit of maple syrup and some butter. So luckily for me, I can get a lot of protein sources from dairy. I don't have to avoid dairy right now. And there's no meats or animal proteins that came up on the sensitivity test. So good with chicken, beef, pork, fish, shellfish, all of that's fine. And so that gives me a lot of leeway. There's just a few things like avoiding bread, avoiding eggs, avoiding peanut butter, and watching out for apples. There's a lot of things. Watching out for soy. Now, soy is in a lot of things too. So it's going to be a lot of avoidance of processed foods and a lot of cooking at home. So I'm wondering if you guys have done any tests like this or thought about it, and if you're interested in joining me in an elimination diet this month. Because I know sometimes when you're on your own and you got to avoid all these foods, it's hard to check in with yourself every day, every week to keep yourself motivated. So what I'm doing is I want to post on a weekly basis how the process is going for the elimination diet. And in the meantime, I can also post videos on the diet plan I'm making for myself as far as the top foods that I'm avoiding. Now, I know we're not all going to be eliminating the same foods and we're not going to be following the same plan, but just the experience of going through the elimination diet, I figured could be more supportive if we did it all together. So that is what my plan is for January, really just trying to um, keep these foods out of my system for 30 days. And then once February comes around, I'm going to do a reintroduction. And the reintroduction is one food per 3 days. So I've got 16 different foods here. I'm going to have to take half the month of February to introduce them all back in because you don't want to introduce them all at once. And then from that point, you'll take note of any symptoms that you have. Because right now, I'm not really noticing any symptoms. It's been so long since I've done any kind of elimination diet that it's just hard to know if anything is food related or diet related or if it's something else. So I feel like this Everlywell test was a great way to get narrow down my focus to figure out what foods to pull away for a while. And it's not a permanent thing. Even if I kept them in my diet, I don't have any major symptoms that make me feel sick that I would have to avoid these foods for the rest of my life. That's not really the point of the test. The point is to narrow down and figure out if your symptoms are food related. And you can do that and get a greater reaction by taking them out of the system and then reintroducing them. So that's the whole point here. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I had mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I did pull out another self-test, a DNA test, and this one is on food and nutrition, and it's called, made by the company Origin, if that's how you pronounce it. So once I get my results back, I'm going to make another video about how I'm going to change up my elimination diet to correlate more with the results of this test. I'll go into the details of this test later in another video, but I just wanted to set up the premise of joining me on an elimination diet if that's something you want to do. Even if you haven't done the Everlywell test and you're suspecting, and you might be pretty sure that a certain food is causing you problems, that you might want to pull that out for 30 days. Maybe there's 4, 5, 6 foods that you want to take away. It's a good month to do it. A lot of people are on the healthy food train, so why not? And then we'll check in every week and see how it's going. So I'd love to hear from you guys if you have tried Everlywell. What's been your experience with it? Have you tried an elimination diet before? What's been your experience with that? And did it give you useful information? This is not like the be-all, end-all of all food sensitivity tests. I mean, I think we could all agree that sugar can be an irritant, even though it might not show up on your IgG antibody test. But it could be something that causes, digestive problems. But right now, it's maybe we're looking at other specific foods that create an inflammatory reaction or a autoimmune reaction in your body. So that is the purpose of this experiment, and I'd love to hear from you guys, any feedback you have on dietary experiments, especially if you've done something like food sensitivity testing and what you learned from it, and if you're interested in joining me on this food elimination challenge. So we're doing 30 days of eliminating food sensitivity that either you determined from a food sensitivity test and you haven't gotten around to that elimination test, like you just haven't committed to it and you're looking for an excuse, or if you have a suspicion there's certain foods that really aggravate you and you just want an excuse to do it. Let's do it. All right, guys, give me some comments below and let me know what you think, and we will check back at the next video. All right, stay tuned. Bye-bye.